Hi, and welcome back to another episode of On the Real with Chief Guzman. I'm Officer Janice Simon, one of the officers here with the City of Miami Springs Police Department. So our residents have again submitted some excellent questions, and we will talk to Chief Guzman and ask him those questions. Thank you for having us.
Hi Janice, how are you?
Very good, thank you. And then, before I forget, if you have questions you would like the Chief to answer, please just send them to the link below, and we will pick next month some questions to ask him. All right, so let's get started. So our first question one resident submitted is, they want to know how many new officers we have hired in the past several months.
Well, since the beginning of the year, we've hired a total of 6 new officers, 5 of those in the last 4 months. Now, one of the things that our residents need to keep in mind is your first day on the job, you're not handed your patrol car keys and go out and handle calls. There's an internal training process that they have to go through. They have to get familiar with our radio procedures, our report writing procedures, and to be honest with you, some of them have to get familiar with our geography because not all of them are residents or familiar with Miami Springs area. So it takes approximately about 4 months, and during those first 4 months, each month they're with a different field training officer on a different shift, and their training progresses until the final portion is what we call shadow phase, where you'll have the brand new officer in uniform and his training officer is in plain clothes. The reason we do that is when they arrive on the scene, we want whoever called the police to immediately focus to the uniform officer, not knowing that the other individual is also an officer, but that way he handles the call and he's evaluated by the senior officer in plain clothes.
Wonderful. All right, so we can't wait to have those officers on the road and 100%. And the ones I've met, an excellent addition to our city. Another question is, which one we hear very often, why don't we see officers patrolling the area?
Well, that's an interesting question, and like you said, we've heard it before, and I've heard it, and my colleagues, other chiefs from the area have also heard that. But if you happen to be sitting outside your house, maybe watering your lawn for 15 or 20 minutes, and you don't see an officer, that doesn't mean they're not patrolling. But we have to keep in mind that they're addressing calls for service, and they're also addressing areas of concern that the citizens have brought to our attention, whether through an email or through your office at Community Policing. Our predominant number one issue is traffic. And as an example, yesterday it was a terrible day. We had a water main break on Northwest 36th Street, which although it happened on the county side, it was affecting traffic on Miami Springs side, so we had to deploy officers there to try to alleviate the traffic. And then later on in the afternoon, we had a car accident on South Royal Point Siena, where a vehicle hit a building, but in the process he knocked off the gas meter.
Right.
So we had active gas coming out, which is a hazard, flammable and explosive hazard. We had to close off that area. Plus we had Miami-Dade Water and Sewer, who's continuously doing work in the city, replacing pipes and so forth. They've blocked off part of Curtis Parkway. So all that was the perfect storm when it came to traffic. So when you have officers addressing those concerns, and then the normal everyday calls for service, if you happen to be outside, you went to pick up your mail or whatever the case may be, and you don't see a police officer driving by, those are some of the things we're dealing with, and those are just day-to-day realities that we address.
Do you have any good tips to give the residents about Halloween safety?
Well, number one, I'd say that go out trick-or-treating in numbers, friends and neighbors and so on. Go to homes that you're familiar with. Lit up homes, I would definitely parents or adult supervision and have a flashlight with you. I wouldn't have the kids wearing any dark clothing, something reflective so that we can see them and the motorists can see them. Be very careful as far as when you get home immediately eating the candy. I inspect it. Unfortunately, we've had a history in years past, I'm not saying here in the Springs, but in other parts of the country where people tend to want to do some nasty things, and why they would want to do that, that's beyond me. But anyways, just be very careful, and I wouldn't consume anything that's open or unpackaged or things of that nature, but go out and have a good and safe time.
All right. And with that, thank you again for joining us at On the Real with the Chief. And again, if you have any questions you would like answered, please just send it to the link below, and we'll see you next month.